feel like I should start this video by saying, hey y'all. Hey, it is spring, daylight savings time, so even though it is late in the evening, it is still sunshiny, and I'm sitting in front of my lilac bush, which is going to bloom soon, I hope. And in this vlog, I'm going to read Dolly Parton and James Patterson book, Run, Rose, Run. Run, Rose, Run, yes. I'm going to go to a concert of Dashboard Confessional and Jimmy World in Knoxville. My first daffodil is going to bloom, and I'm going to reorganize my bookshelf. So let's get into it. Okay, my copy of Dolly Parton's new book, Run, Rose, Run, arrived last night. I just opened it, and I really like the gold on it, but the cover feels, it's not like paper, it's like plasticky. It's kind of different. But I think it's just because it's like a mass market. So it also has on the back a Dolly and a code for Dolly's new album, which I'm going to scan and hopefully I can listen to on my road trip today. Today I am driving to Knoxville from where I live in East Tennessee, so I'm driving right past Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, and that's the exit for Dollywood. And this is downtown Knoxville. Okay, the concert was absolutely amazing, but I got in bed at the end of the night at Lindsay's guest room and started reading. So I have a moment alone to check in and tell you how I'm liking Dolly Parton and James Patterson's Run, Rose, Run. I am liking it. I'm on a page 149. I'm reading about 50 pages a night for the last few nights. I was out of town for one night at a friend's house. She had a beautiful hand-stitched quilt from one of her older family members, and I snuggled under it, and before I went to sleep I read a few pages. It goes really smoothly down. It's like drinking a very smooth, delicious beverage. I don't even know. Iced tea? That would be the southern thing to say. It is fun and funny. Descriptions of the book I saw, which I didn't read many of because if it's a thriller I didn't want to be spoiled for anything, but the descriptions of the book I saw mention the young singer songwriter with a guitar on her back who's fleeing something and shows up in Nashville. But I didn't realize that there's also an older character who is a country music superstar in the book, who is, I think, only a little patterned after Dolly, and she likes sparkly dresses and she's like royalty. She also like owns a bar in Nashville where she goes and she listens to music sometimes, and she's like retired, which is definitely not Dolly's thing, and she's like not doing anything in the business anymore. And I feel like you hear Dolly's voice of like experience in the country music world in that character, but her sense of humor and her feistiness come through so strong in the younger character. I'm actually really surprised at the amount that I feel like the women characters are voiced by Dolly. Her personality and her way of talking was clearly extremely influential in how the book was shaped. To be honest, whenever anybody writes a book with anybody, you never know who is doing the majority of the work. James Patterson is obviously the writer, so I kind of assumed that I was going to feel like a James Patterson book, and maybe just the story would be inspired by something Dolly told him. But it feels like the writer paid a lot of attention to her interviews and how she talks and how she expresses herself, and really got that in there. I mean, maybe Dolly wrote those parts herself, but they definitely sound like her. If you've ever listened to the podcast Dolly Parton's America, you've heard how she talks. I've also watched old interviews with Dolly, and of course when you go to Dollywood you hear her voice all throughout the park because she's like, thank you for being here, I hope you enjoy this new ride. And like, I just so clearly able to hear her voice saying the things that the women say in the books. Not that they're doing the same experience she had, like I don't think at all it's autobiographical. For starters, the main character comes from Texas, not East Tennessee, but she well, I won't give that away. So the other thing it has that feels very Dolly inspired is its head-on addressing of the sexism in country music and the music industry as a whole, and how young girls are used and chewed up and spit out and like appreciated for their bodies more than their voice, and really underestimated at every turn. That is just like, the women are just talking about it openly and kind of like, of course it is like this, and as part of Dolly's entire life, like she's always joked that she doesn't mind making the jokes first, because when people are laughing at her, they're underestimating her, and she understands how she's controlling the narrative. A lot of times we look at somebody who presents so femininely as Dolly has, and we think like she's playing into the patriarchy's idea about feminine beauty, when in fact she is understanding it and using it as a source of power. Now, this book itself is not that deep. I hope there is a discussion, I haven't gotten to it yet, about subverting the patriarchy through gender expression, but it's not there yet. It is super fast-paced. Like I said, it feels like easy going down. It's easy reading, which I do not mean as an insult, because Lord knows my brain needs like to not have complex sentences. Like it's nowhere near literary fiction. Some thrillers like Razorblade Tears feel very writerly, and some thrillers don't. And I'm okay with both. There's no snobbery. I do like to read books with absolutely beautiful, gorgeous sentences, and sometimes I just like to read books that I can read and just move through, and I'm not stopping to be like, oh wow, good word choice. So this is like that so far. I'm having fun with it. I guess it's clear to tell because I have all these things to say, and I still have like 3/4 of the book to go. So I'm reading it each night. This is spring break this week, so I don't have a lot of time, I think, so I'm happy to have this book to keep me company this week. Hey, I have just filmed the Where to Start with John Scalzi video, and I used these books, and when putting these books back on the shelf, I realized that I could organize a shelf with like a shelf of science fiction and a shelf of thriller horror, and then a unread shelf. Let's reorganize my shelves. By the way, my husband really likes alphabetical order, so we'll see if he even notices, because he very rarely uses these shelves or gets anything off them. We just put books on them after we finish them. They're already kind of organized by, the nonfiction is organized by subject. So this down here is history and philosophy and a big stack of Bibles, and this over here is memoir and autobiography. So it's just really these two shelves that have been going in alphabetical order across it for fiction. Let's see what we can do. Okay, V.E. Schwab, what do we think? I've read this one and I haven't read these two, and this is, what is it, fantasy? I don't know, sci-fi? It's about superhero people. Let's put that aside for now. Classics. That's here. Literary fiction. That does not fit. so cut off, I'm not quite sure where, but we have all of sci-fi to Asimov. We've got fantasy, and then some horror with Stephen King and Grady Hendrix. I obviously need to move Game of Thrones over with fantasy. And then over here, I figured out that I'm gonna do unread and then classics and lit fic all together, because most classics are like literary fiction. Then we have the thrillers. These I've all read, and I did this in rainbow order because that's gonna be behind me in a lot of videos. So. Tell me how you organize your shelves. We almost always do fiction alphabetically, and then I have a shelf that is like on my to be read in the next 6 months list over there, kind of by the chair. And then we have some craft books and some gardening books over by the couch. More books that you might want to like pull out and show people when they visit. Yeah, but I still have 3 boxes of books upstairs that are unboxed. So this is really just the fiction. Hey, so it's Tuesday and it is spring break, so the only time I am reading Dolly is in the evening, and I'm feeling a little, there's a squirrel. I'm ready for something to happen. I feel like right now it's just like a lot of setup, like stuff happened in the beginning and then setup, which I realize like it's almost a little too realistic about the music business, that you have to just keep recording and writing songs and recording. And I'm ready for something to happen. I guess I thought I'd be a little more fast-paced, but I'm standing here next to my lilac bush because I've decided to just go on and combine gardening content with book content, especially during the vlogs, because right now at this time of year, it's both things happening, especially during spring break. I'm doing a lot of stuff with my kiddos, like going to the gardening store, buying even more seeds, and starting seeds. You see the lilac? Trying to get it in focus here. Hey, so I'm just walking my mom into an appointment, and I finished Dolly's book last night, which I gotta tell you, the last 100 pages really didn't feel like Dolly's voice, which was so present in the characters in the beginning of the book, just really fizzled out. Like once it got to the end and it was sort of the reveal of the secrets that the young star had been hiding, it kind of just felt like a plug and play James Patterson novel, and I haven't even read James Patterson. I lost a lot of personality, and honestly I was super disappointed in the last 100 pages. They didn't go into any kind of emotional depth when discussing what had happened to the main character. This is not a spoiler, her dark secrets are because something happened to her, which she says in the beginning, and but they treated it like it was so big and so dark. And then of course when she revealed it, the people who cared about her just still cared about her. They didn't hate her because something bad had happened to her, but there was no emotional depth to her explanation or her talking about it. She was just like, well, that's happened, and it just lacked all believability of how you talk about it. And I really felt like the strong voice of the 2 women characters were entirely missing. The older country music star just completely fizzled out at the end, and the younger star just was so relieved to have told somebody. It didn't feel like herself. So I'll do a wrap up in a minute, but I wanted to share those thoughts since I just finished it. Those are my fresh thoughts. Okay, my very first daffodil. We planted these bulbs last fall, and I was kind of worried nothing was going to come up. Look how cute. I love it. Hey, I'm here with my little buddy because I realized I did not give my final thoughts on Run, Rose, Run. I think I said in my last clip that I probably need to reread the end because I was falling asleep while reading it, and I did. I went back and I reread it, and yeah, as remembered, the main female characters aren't really in the final scenes. There's an epilogue of 9 months later and they're on stage performing, but the and this isn't a spoiler, but what I didn't care for the book is the way that it ends up is basically with the male side character saving the day and learning the truth and deciding that he loves the main girl anyhow. And I love you. That is just, it was disappointing. It was disappointing because I loved the characters. I loved the voice of both the older female star and the young woman who was, you know, breaking into Nashville. I loved the setting. And then it just fizzled out. Like, it just became like there was like an action scene at the very end that didn't even involve the main characters. I was sad. Like, also, it definitely made it more like a love story, and I did not think I was getting a romance. I thought I was getting like a thriller, like an action thriller, and I love the first half. I would love if like there was a series of those characters where it was not about their love life and it was not about men hurting them or saving them. Even if you had no problem with a man saving the day in a book that's mostly about women, it just takes like a left turn, like from where it's going to where it ends up. And I think that if you liked the first 3/4 of it, the last quarter kind of doesn't match. And I think it's because kind of what I've been identifying as the Dolly voice, like the Southern, strong, I'm not going to let anybody mess with me women, just kind of disappear from the final quarter. So if that's what you like about the book, it's disappointing. But if what you wanted was something more of an action thriller, I think the first like 3/4 are going to be kind of boring for you. I mean, it's not a favorite, but I'm glad I got it. And I'll probably like let a friend borrow it. Thanks for hanging out with me for the last week. And let me know if you read it and let me know what you think of it. Or if you love James Patterson, you've read his other books, let me know if there's another one I should check out. Okay, could you hold this for me? Thank you. I feel like what do I feel like? That's the question.